Good afternoon, friends, and thank you, Mr. Sanyal, for giving me this opportunity to talk about e-governance and some of the experiences of NISG, the National Institute of Smart Government, in as we have been rolling out and implementing various e-governance projects across the country. We will talk, in this presentation, I'll talk of some of our experiences and some of the challenges and issues that we come across as various IT projects, e-governance projects are implemented in various parts. First of all, let's understand what governance or what good governance stands for. You know, overall, the objective of governance is to bring down. First of all, governance is to become as least governance as possible. Let there be more deregulation, etc. Right sizing. It has to be customer centric. Right? You are talking about the consumers, the citizens, what kind of needs they have got, and that has to be kept at the center of all our governance projects. And there should be more of participative governments, inclusion, communication, etc. That has to be taken into account. So anytime we are talking of transformation in a government's project, I think these are some of the factors which have to be kept in mind. So e-governance typically stands for all government services accessible to the common man in his locality, close by, through a one-stop shop, convenience, efficiency, transparency, and reliability. So in a way, these are the factors which are kept in mind in various transformational projects which are undertaken when e-governance is getting implemented. Because if you do not take care of this, you have issues of this nature. You have great buildings, nice buildings, but inside that you have a lot of clutter. You're not able to locate any information effectively. We were talking about how many meters there are in this country, and trying to find out and get any meaningful information when information is stored in this manner, you can understand what a mammoth task it would be. And any e-governance project, there are four major pillars, four major aspects which have to be kept in mind: process, people, technology, and resources. And in a way, each of these have to be taken into account. What are the processes, right? Is it just you're taking care of whatever is the current situation, or are you transforming the entire procurement and the other aspects of that e-governance project? And our experience is that rather than just looking at aspect, rather than just taking the existing processes and computerizing them, very often it is important, very important to transform the process itself. Of course, people is a very important aspect. There is a political will is needed, officials who have to be very committed about this, etc. So we don't want to go more into the people aspect. Technology is a challenge. There are a lot of solutions getting used, but do we have the proper architecture? Are there standards? Is the infrastructure there, etc.? So technology challenges do play a very important role, and of course the resources, budgets, private sector, public sector. How do we make all the stakeholders come together and ensure that the e-governance project is a success? Here I'll just talk very briefly about some of the issues which come up and what we have to keep in mind. Various e-governance projects could have different aspects. The first is planning. If you have not planned it effectively, I think no project can be successful. If you don't plan it, you are bound to make sure that it is going to be a failure. So planning, conceptualization, what we are trying to achieve are very important. Your objectives must be very clear. The risk assessment has to be taken care, and all that has to be adequately addressed to ensure that the project will go through successfully. Very often we go in for a mission impossible. We try to do everything, and we think that everything can be just done by bringing in a consultant, and everything, magic will happen. So there are issues of ground realities. What are the international benchmarks? What has been done? What are the things we have to keep in mind? So I think rather than attempting the mission impossible, try to see what all is achievable. Very often we don't understand effectively what governance stands for. There are centralized and decentralized situations. India being a federal country, it's not just enough to think of a solution at the center level. You have to see that it has to be implemented at the states, and whether there's enough buy-in at the state level or not is an important aspect. Bottleneck is always at the top, and I think what this is trying to say is that the senior most leadership of that organization or that department must be committed to make this change happen, and unless there is enough incentive, enough commitment to make this happen, the project may not go through very successfully. So the commitment level and ownership at the senior management is very important. Very often, some e-governance projects are become more vendor-driven. We let the vendors do whatever they are trying to do, and unless there is ownership by the department, that may not also lead to the right e-governance projects. As I mentioned earlier, very often there's focus on doing the existing processes electronically rather than focusing on the governance, focusing on what we are trying to achieve, what is the citizen, what is the end user of that process, what he is trying to look at, and therefore, if you just take the existing processes which have been there for the last so many decades and just try to do them electronically, that may not really achieve the overall goal of e-governance. Employees are major stakeholders, and if you don't look after the interests and of the existing employees, that can have serious repercussions. They can be backlash, projects can be jeopardized because the stakeholders are not buying in and are not really committed to the success of the project. So those aspects have also to be taken care of, and I know of several projects where that is a very important element. It's not just sufficient to look at this is the project. The existing people in the organization, their needs and interests and all also have to be taken into account. You can't build it all in one day. It takes time, so you have to plan for it, and trying to take years in deciding what is to be done and then wanting things to happen overnight will not really work. Very often projects can get individualized. It's an individual who's driving it and not the institution, and that again is not the right way, because it must be the whole institution which must be committed in implementing that e-governance project. The people who are trying to reform or bring in reforms in various sectors, they could be, there are enough people, existing stakeholders are trying to bring them down, and they have enough enemies in the system. So those are also aspects which have to be kept in mind. E-governance, you also have to be clear, are you looking at the front office or the back office? Front office is where you're interfacing with the consumers, with the industry, etc. And back office is where you're looking at more efficient utilization, more efficient working of the department by itself. So I think, again, both of these things are important. It's not just that this is front office or back office. Both elements are important, but you must be clear which projects are achieving something at the front office level where you're interfacing with the outside world, and what is helping you run your business, your activity much more efficiently. Very often the business model is not looked at. It's assumed that this project will only be government funded, and the government funds will drive that project for eternity. And we have to look at all e-governance projects, because there is going to be a ongoing cost which will be involved. There can be a one-time budget which could be allocated, but that cannot be the ongoing activity. So we have to look at a business model in various e-governance projects, and can that really sustain not just beyond the initial 2-3 years of funding, but can it be a sustainable business model itself? That's an important element. Media hype. Is it more of just getting a lot of media hype? Is it just that it looks good, or does it really make a difference? So very often media and their whether media thinks highly of it, and getting a lot of media hype becomes at times an important element, but we have to again keep our overall objectives in mind. If you don't have the governance in mind, sometimes just the ego could be the driving factor rather than what end result we are looking at. There are silos of success, and rather than just looking at a few silos, we have to see that that we transform the entire process rather than just one unit, one element getting transformed. Award-driven projects, people are very often looking at just awards and not just seeing whether actually value is getting driven, or whoever is the key stakeholder, is he getting value out of this project? Big bang e-governance. Do we just want to have everything being done? All things, we have a lot of problems in various governance projects. Can we just do one thing and change everything in one shot? Very often that's not the best solution. Go about it in small steps. Take item by item and see what you can do to ensure that the project becomes successful. There is very often a blame game also which goes on, that you are talking of this didn't happen, that didn't happen, and keep on pointing the fingers at somebody else. Whether it's a private sector, whether it's this department, whether it's whatever it is, very often that's another element. And NISG, if you just talk of what NISG does, NISG is National Institute of Smart Government, which is really helping various state and center departments in implementing e-governance projects. We act as advisors, guiders, really become the hand-holding organization which handholds various state governments and central governments in implementing e-governance projects, both in the conceptualization stage, understanding what the problem area is, what could be the way e-governance could be brought in, so more at the strategic planning and the conceptualization stage, then getting into the project development where you start working out how to implement it, who are the people who will be involved. At times it's a question of getting a public-private partnership, so we do get involved in helping the departments in getting the right resources in implementing this project. Capacity building is another important aspect of NISG, because there is not adequate capacity at all the center and state levels, and NISG plays a very important role there. And of course, we try to figure out, do some research and innovation in new areas, new concepts which could be applied across various projects. Just to give one idea, one example where NISG worked in, this was in the e-passports project, and citizens had to be provided passport services with certainty, speed, convenience, and transparency. And I think NISG looked at all these objectives, and this project is about to get rolled out. It's in the implementation stage. I understand that it should be going live in the very near future. So there are some very mission-critical projects in which NISG is working in, and we hope to see how we can work in much larger number of projects. This seminar is more about smart city. We are working in the urban projects also. A lot of activities going on here. But in this presentation, I just wanted to talk briefly about some of the challenges in e-governance in general and what issues one should keep in mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sanjeev, for again rebuilding in our mind what are the different aspects of the e-governance. And actually, there is e-passport is not that project. Project is e-passport is a different project, and Passport Seva Kendra is a different passport-related services, which is going to be live, I hope, on 29th January in Bangalore and Chandigarh. But anyway, any questions on all? Yeah, why not? Please identify yourself.
My name is Aparna Das, and I work for and I'm an urban planner. I do not know whether it is being kind of with a thought or is this because in the last slide I saw that you said it's a citizen-centric. But in your first, second or third slide I saw that it's a customer-driven. Customer-driven governance. Now, two words, when we start using it as synonym, especially in a country like India, like customer and citizen, there is a lot to it, So, is it something that? Okay, I have two mics now. Is it something that we are conscious about it? That not every customer or not every citizen can become a customer? Because if you see, look at our cities, 40% of it is informal,
And if we are talking about a governance which is customer-driven governance, it's a completely a different kind of a scenario we are painting. So this is something, and also, I find that in our e-governance projects, there's one of the, it's not really inclusive, because you have to also think about the other side, the 40% of it, which is sitting away from this, and maybe the dissemination has to be done in a very different way than what we do for the other 60% or the 50% of the population.
Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. I think your point is a very valid point. When you refer to somebody as a customer means that he is paying for some services, right? And therefore, there are a lot of e-governance projects where there is a service being provided which is getting paid for, and the person who's using those services could be paying whether 10 rupees, 20 rupees, 50 rupees or whatever. So there is a commercial angle to it which can pay for those services. The other aspect is where it is a citizen, by nature of being a citizen, has a right to ask for certain services, and he need not have to pay for that. And therefore, he is not a customer, he is a consumer of some other services. He is a citizen which he expects certain things as a right. And I think your point is valid that in this presentation, both of these were used interchangeably. In a way, you have to keep in mind who that e-governance project is meant for. Sometimes it could be for a citizen who may or may not be paying for those services. At times it could be about a person who derives value out of that service and therefore is willing to pay for it. And therefore the business model or the way the project is conceptualized could be different in both the situations. But I take your point that in this presentation, the words were used synonymously.
I think let me just add a little bit what Sanjeev told. I think it has become almost customary that we use the word customer-driven governance. I mean, it's only a question of semantics. I think he answered it correctly. It's not only in this presentation, in many of the places, even in our notings, we use it, but we really mean the citizen, because it's important that whether value is proposed in that or not. Transaction of money is something 5,000 years ago there was no money, so there's to be barter. So it is only the value proposition which is more important, and there's no problem of taking all the citizens as a customer of where you have to attend to. So that's the generic feeling. There's not much of more than 70. But thank you, Sanjeev, for this. And if there is no other question, I will request. Is there any question? Sorry, I missed.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Sanjeevan Bajaj. I'm the CEO of Wiki Quality Division. I must congratulate NISG on all the things that they do for promoting e-governance. I wanted to link it up with some of the ground level work that we are doing. For example, we worked with a municipal corporation in a small town, and they are still struggling with installing a water billing software which comes up with error-free bills. So when we talk of ground level realities of that kind, that for about 2.5 years they have installed the software and they are not able to come up with error-free bills even now. Even say every 6 months they're not able to come up with bills. So looking at the wide divide, from NISG side, could you suggest to us that for these kinds of organizations, what is the way out? Who should they contact to build that kind of capacity? Because water billing software is not something that is not available in the country. And they don't know where to go, and they just keep on struggling within those loops. Who should they go to? NISG is too high level for them to contact. Is it the state government? And the state government also doesn't have the capacity. So how do they cross this?
Ma'am, let me take the liberty of answering this question. I'll spare Sanjeev for that. The domain knowledge of this department, which is very nicely trying to their knowledge is in I mean, nobody can substitute that knowledge. So what I can understand from this, what little bit of problem he said, is that the proper process engineering has not been done. So once this process engineering is actually refined enough to fit it into a software SRS applications, there should not be, I mean, it's not a great rocket science of getting a error-free water billing. So only thing is the process has to be made into the blocks, which can be translated nicely in a software. then you can get an error-free
They
billing
already
software.
have a software. Who should they go to?
But
for
if the
this kind
software
of-
is developed by somebody, is it not that fellow is not responding? I mean,
that fellow comes and goes, and they still keep struggling.
so I will
again
say
and
that
again.
there is an interfacing problem with the domain expert who knows that whole system and the software. Either Mr. X is not convincing the others about the whole process, or Mr. Y is not understanding the process. I mean, we can discuss and decide. I mean, there are small organizations also take care. I mean, it's not NISD is really big. They are the interfacing people in there. But if it is a municipal department, etc., we can discuss. Okay.
Thank you.
So if there is no other question, so let me thank Sanjeev for.